Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So
Hi,
tonight
Internet.
we are doing something special. Um, Yet another special episode, obviously. But the reason for the episode is not really to provide extra time um, or um, set things up or plan or plot or any of that stuff. The discussions that are going to be had tonight take place directly after game earlier this week, our first episode back of the season. There was discussions that were happening in our Discord in the downtime portion that were becoming so visceral and so heated, let's say. Not in real life, just in character. I want to stress that. That we felt that it would be good to role play them out and to um, really do um, justice to the conversation that's being had. These two wonderful players here, both Mercy and Braggy, as well as myself and every other player at my table, and every game that I run and will run. We have all had discussions on lines, veils, where our limits are, where we want to maintain those real world boundaries, and we intend to always keep that in mind when role playing. Vampire, like many people understand, is the nature of it can be heavy, it can be dark, it can be um, very adult. The and Seamus is dinging my Discord. Um, and so we want to always keep that in mind. And for the main episodes of the game, we don't always get into these discussions. We don't always have these instances. But occasionally, the players have the inspiration and the drive to want to act out some of these more role play heavy themes, these darker themes. And I am here to provide a safe, um, regulated space to do so. I hope that I do a good job of that, but we've all had discussions beforehand. We all know where we stand. Both these players are very um, on board with what it was their idea. I will state that at the beginning of this. Um, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that everything that we are going to discuss tonight is while we are approaching it in the view of a game, as a role playing game. There are serious topics that we take very seriously, and if anybody is struggling with any of the topics, please get help, call your friends, let us know. We're happy to help. Um, that being said, let's have fun and let's kind of get into what we're doing. Um, as a brief kind of recap as to where we are in our world, um, the the players, Mercy and Braggy, had recently had a discussion with the prince of the city. They had decided that, um, well, not so much decided. Mercy kind of decided that Braggy was bringing up a little too much of the dark underworld of vampire and risking the masquerade a little too freely, given the circumstances at play. The sire, Mercy, grabbed Braggy and drug him into, from the bar, a secured meeting space that we have seen many times before. Um, a discussion then began that could be described as intense. The two kindred here, both sharing their feelings and their emotions in this very heated time, this stressful moment in their unlives, And it became apparent that Mercy's anger at Braggy's actions and the relationship that they've had this far are um, it's boiling up in a way because she feels un out of control of the situation, and Braggy feels very much like he's lost. That he doesn't know what the fuck he's supposed to do. He doesn't understand this world that he's been born into, and he doesn't feel like anybody's really helping him through it. Where we will pick up in this discussion is after some heated exchanges back and forth. Braggy has decided to break a chair to create an improvised wooden stake. At this moment in time, Mercy is across the room from him. He's holding the stake, and it is unclear whether or not he means to turn the stake on himself or on his sire Mercy. Now, as a quick reminder to both of you, and I don't know if your characters would think of this in this heated moment, you are technically in what is known as an Elysium. For those watching that don't understand what an Elysium is, any harm done to kindred by kindred in an Elysium is punishable by the prince, and that can be up to final death. Depending on the severity, depending on the prince's mood, an Elysium is supposed to be a safe haven for all kindred, regardless of blood, feelings, anything like that. So, with all of that in mind, all of that backstory established, kind of catching the audience up on where this conversation from the Discord will be picking up for the view of the public, um, I would like to toss it to both of you. Uh, Before we get into the actual conversation, though, I want to know where you're both mentally at, your characters. I know both of you mentally are in a good space, and I love that. But for your characters, let's start with Braggy, because I put you on the top in this. What is Braggy's mental state in this moment based on the conversation that has been had so far?
Braggy is definitely unsure of his place in this new world that he's kind of been tossed into. Uh, he's also very angry, not necessarily just with the other kindred, but himself too, because he's trying so hard to do all the things that he was told to do, but he feels like he's just screwing up left and right. And even with all the gifts and grace that Mercy has provided him, in particular, at this point in time, Braggy is just incredibly distraught and confused, and just kind of unsure of what his next move is going to be right in this very moment. But he does acknowledge, he is very emotionally charged right now, so he knows like anything he does in this moment could end horribly, but he also, that's kind of an afterthought for him in the moment.
Now, Mercy,
Mhm.
you had been leading this conversation at the
Sure.
beginning. I would say of all of the dialogue that was spoken, um, you probably had the most. So,
Sure.
where's Mercy at? Where's your Bruja blood boiling put you at this moment, seeing the scene that's played out before you, given everything that's been said?
So, uh, there is context in the special episodes to kind of frame where Mercy is right now. But essentially, um, Mercy, as Maggie's childer, has always been like a target in the city, right? and whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing, whether or not that was just a esoteric potential threat as opposed to like a real and actualized threat. All of these things have been true at different times. But she's accustomed to this sort of like the spotlight is on her because of who she is in relation to the prince. And so this is something she's familiar with. It's only the things that she's dealt with as a kindred this whole time was always don't make Maggie look bad or she'll have to kill you. And Maggie has reassured her over and over and over again that that's not what she wants to happen. And that she doesn't want Mercy to feel trapped as a kindred because of her relationship to the prince and her, her sire as it is. And now that's becoming even more of an issue for her. She is being visited by Justicars. She is being targeted by outside forces. And all of this is going on while she has this brand new kindred who's got no clue what he's doing, walking around existing. And so she's under a lot of stress. And this has really come to a head here after the meeting in the last episode where what followed the meeting where she, had to send people away because she was worried about the consequences of them hearing what she had to say, down into a room where her childer then starts talking about the biggest, baddest monsters in the fucking secret society of the kindred at a bar where there's like humans just hanging out. It's just a bar. It's pretty empty tonight. And so, it's not like as big of a deal as it could be. But like, anybody could have walked up and heard what they were talking about. A Justicar could have come into the room and heard what they were talking about and caused problems. And so it's kind of a spot in her mind, like, look, we're all at risk right now. Like, this is a dangerous place to be, and you're out here, like, ignoring the fact that all this danger exists, by her perspective, of course, ignoring all that danger in favor of breaking the very first rules we ever taught you about. And she doesn't even know that he's actually broken that rule somewhere else. But so she, between the stress of what's going on and this, like, the core rules of their existence being like the foundation on which they work, and he's not even tracking that, and she's upset and she's scared that it puts her at risk, that it puts him at risk, and so she has pulled him aside for this conversation, perhaps not in the best like mindset to do so or in the kindest way, but she's done a lot in these last couple of nights. Especially in like the previous season where she was being helpful, where she was being kind, where she was kind of baby stepping around these things, and they don't have room for that anymore. And so she came into this talk with the intention of laying down some harder rules and some harsh realities about what's going on, and it's kind of spiraled out of control from there, which, I mean, isn't that what happens when we're worried about not having enough control? Don't things just get worse and worse from there? So that's kind of where she's at. This was supposed to be a, hey, we've got to be more careful, we've got to pay more attention, we have got to be on the same page about this. But again, because she is under a lot of pressure, because she is a Bruja, and because inherently at the core of things she's afraid of what's going on in the city, it's gotten far more extreme than she intended.
Okay. So, moods laid out, backstory explained. Here we are. Braggy, stake in hand, uneasiness, insecurity on his face, not knowing what comes next. Mercy, anger flowing through you to the point where I think I will call for a frenzy check at this point.
Oh, sure.
I think even beginning where we're at now,
Mm-hmm.
you've gone into this visual representation of this conversation far more heated.
Yeah. Okay,
We will
so
keep the difficulty low, starting out relatively. It's going to be 2.
I think this is gonna go differently than expected. So I'm gonna put in my Bane, right?
Right
And then I don't
now,
know that
I
what
will
that looks like when I roll.
also reiterate,
Mhm.
for the purposes of frenzies, you can burn a willpower to succeed.
Oh, okay.
So, as long as you have willpower, if you fail it, you can say, I maintain control.
It says that you're very quiet.
How about now? Better? Worse?
No change on my end, so I have no idea. I'm gonna go ahead and hit my roll though while we sort that out.
Okay. I've turned up my audio capture, so I'm hoping that it is better. Okay, good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was louder.
Yeah, I had
Okay,
mine turned down pretty far.
fair. I'll willpower reroll to keep my cool.
You don't need to willpower reroll. You can just burn the willpower to succeed.
Oh, okay. Oh,
You
gotcha.
just
My mistake.
cross it off. It's essentially
Cool.
the same thing, but you don't have to worry about rolling it. You're burning willpower to maintain control of your beast.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. That only shifts things a little bit. So, are we set then?
I believe at this point, we can begin. Now, I also have your guys' audio here, should it get a little too loud. So please, in the chat, let me know if the audio levels start to peak out from those two, mostly the redhead here. So, yes, let's begin.
I brought you here to talk because you were discussing kindred affairs and justicars out in the open where any human could have walked up and heard you. I have reminded you what constitutes masquerade violation. And I'm going to pay to replace Maggie's chair that you broke because I've done it before. And they're a fucking bitch to find. And I don't need you to go through that as some sort of childlike punishment, despite how you perceive my treatment of you so far. I won't even ask you to be grateful. Because, as you've so tactlessly pointed out, you never asked to be here, to live an unlife in the night, nor to be tied so closely to the prince when she's pulling all this unwanted attention onto us. However, you are still dancing around the point so perfectly that I find it hard to believe you truly can't see it. But I'll address your points anyway, for clarity. It doesn't matter at all whether I wanted to treat you well as a new kindred out of the kindness of my heart, because I have been asked to be your sire and lead you into what this night is supposed to be, or if it was just the obligation that existed because Maggie asked it of me. Who the fuck cares? It's the same to you anyway. And you clearly don't appreciate those efforts, which I find both endlessly funny and really fucking upsetting. You are a pawn. You're right. This is a big game of immortals. I'm a pawn, you're a pawn, Maggie's a pawn. Welcome to this unlife. You've been given every tool you need to manage this new reality. A mask, a place to live, a place to start creating the person that you want to pretend to be for the next couple of decades. It's a great fucking show, and you're in charge of it. But I can't think for you, Braggy. And if you don't start thinking before you open your mouth, I can't save you either. I know you're scared. We're all scared. We were scared. You were scared before the Justicars arrived. And now every single person in our coterie is worried about whether or not they're going to see the next night. I get it. And you just got to the city and just found out that the things that go bump in the night are real. You don't even know what to be scared of yet. I understand. It wasn't so long ago that I was in your position. But I can't keep standing between you and final death. I've thrown myself between you and bullets, between you and under kindred. I have covered your mistakes. I've even learned how to cloud the minds of mortals to make up for the mistakes that you make, because that's my job as your sire, and I am doing my damnedest. But all these efforts don't matter if you make these kinds of mistakes in front of a Justicar, especially not when the Justicar is formally investigating me. But we haven't even gotten to that part, have we? Because you're just not listening. You're throwing a fit. Because I've brought you in here to have this conversation, to fill you in on the things that you don't know, and instead you're casting blame and arguing and shouting at me, and I'm just trying my best. You can't make these mistakes in front of a Justicar. You cannot break the most basic, essential rules of being a kindred in front of the powers that enforce the law and uphold the traditions for kindreds. I can't save you. I'm just as likely to die for what you're doing as you are, which is why I need you to follow the rules. I can't keep doing this. I can't throw myself in front of a Justicar for you. I'm already on the list. I know that you're upset. I know that you see that you have only a few options. But the fact of the matter is that you're wrong about that too. You can't just walk out of here and leave. We could figure something else out. If you don't want me as your sire, I'm sure there are options. But the fact of the matter is, you either figure this shit out, become somebody else's problem, or you die. That's the fact of the city right now. We're all at risk.
Braggy ponders what Mercy has just explained to him very solemnly and very stoically before he knows, like, yeah, he screwed up a lot here. He's very aware of that fact in the back of his mind. Like, wow, I probably should have really thought about not bringing that up at a bar. So he's thinking, stake still in hand, before he says, you know, make a lot of good points. I have screwed up royally, and it could be real bad if people, well, humans, mortals, put two and two together. For all intents and purposes, there's a lot at play here, and all this information that you're just throwing at me with more recent events than 2 months ago, like what, the past night, 2 nights, week, all these sudden appearances of, like, the most crucial elements of upholding the traditions of this unlife showing up, and you expect me to be able to remain calm and think clearly through all of that when there's serious danger coming our way. Like, the entire coterie, the prince, everyone is at risk of the final death for reasons we don't even have an inkling of. And there's this, feels like an expectation that I'm just supposed to fall in line immediately and stay in line when I'm 2 months into this. I have some experience, but not a lot, and...
Yes, you're right. That is expecting a lot. But it's not because oh, well, he's just a kid, he'll just listen to what we have to say. You have to. We all have to. It's not about, oh, I'm new to this, I don't understand. We're all at risk with these Justicars. We are all in danger from what's going on. You're not special. It's not because you're new. It's because there are Justicars in our city. And they're here to make sure we're doing things right. It doesn't matter if you're new or if you've been here longer than Maggie. That's what you're missing. That's what I can't seem to get you to understand. It's not about you. It's not about expecting you to do anything. You either fall in line and get this right or you die. And if you don't do it right, you risk taking me and Maggie out with you. That's why I'm upset. That's why I'm trying to get you to understand. It's not because you're new. It's not because you have to trust me because I'm your sire. It's because if you don't, you die. If you don't, I die trying to make sure you don't die. That's where we're at.
I'm not saying that it's all about me here. That is not the intention I'm trying to put across. I'm definitely stating facts that, yeah, I'm confused because I don't know thing one about this hierarchy and how high up, or rather how high up in the food chain these Justicars are. And it's such a big deal apparently that I'm completely out of my element in understanding just how fucked we are. If I go down, you go down, the prince goes down, I can understand that. I can get behind that idea. Fair enough. But there's a crucial element here where I seek information to understand and better fall in line, and there's very little explanation, if any, on half of what I've been told. It's basically been told to me that don't break the masquerade, don't screw up in front of the Justicars, don't do this, don't do that, but there's no details in the overwhelming majority of anything I've been taught. It's simply just one sentence, one lesson, follow it or die. I can't fathom the follow it or die part without more information to understand why it's follow it or die. Why it is so set in stone, tradition, protecting the populace of both kindred and mortals, keeping that degree of separation. I can understand all that. What I can't understand right in this very moment at this point, and Braggy will raise the stake, is why I haven't done this by now. And he just slams it into the table. I mean, like, as hard as he can.
Well, I guess I'll replace the table too. I didn't know Justicars existed before they showed up in our city. I didn't know what an Alistar or a red Alistar or whatever the fuck that means was until she was in my gallery. I understand that you don't understand. I really do. I get it. I don't know what's happening either. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they come from. I just know that if I say or do the wrong thing, I might not live to see another night. I'm doing everything I can. I came in today to have this conversation with you and Maggie. I had a private conversation with Maggie in order to try and keep you out of the bullshit that might get me killed. I came downstairs to speak to you about what's going on, about what this means, about what we're going to do. And instead, you're breaking Maggie's furniture and complaining about I don't understand why I have to behave this way. I don't either. It's because you're a kindred. That's all it is. You're a vampire now. You're one of the things that go bump in the night, and in order to maintain your life, to keep all of us secret as a whole, you have to follow the rules. Why? Because the fucking kindred before us said so. Because bigger, badder, more powerful vampires are out there fighting to keep things the way they've always been. And the reason that they're so upset right now is because Maggie's fighting to change that. And I get that too. And that just paints big fucking targets on us as also. And I don't know what to do about that either, except fall in line. The very base core rules are what we have to pay attention to right now because we're railing against the rest of the social rules that exist. We cannot out ourselves to humans when we're currently fighting to say, why the fuck do I have to be treated differently because of my clan? Okay? I get it. I get it. It sucks. It's awful. It's terrible. All right? I know. But that's the way it is. And we can't change it if we're dead. Okay? So, I understand what you're saying. It's hard. We don't know why. We don't know how to do this. And we don't have a lot of information. That's why we just had a meeting with Tony to try and get ahead of things. That's why we just had a meeting with Maggie. I understand that we don't know enough. I know that we're both new, that we don't know what the system of government above Maggie is, but we're learning on the fly. I have the same questions you do, I'm sure. What exactly is the power of a Justicar? How strong do you have to be one? How old are they? Are they powerful enough to take out Maggie? Probably. That's kind of their job. Right? That's what we know. That's all we know. And I understand that that sucks. I understand it's fucking terrifying. But I don't know what else to do about it, except fall in line for the very base, absolute rules. Just don't reveal this shit. Just don't talk about this stuff where people will hear you. Do not act in a way that's going to reflect poorly on us, on Maggie, or on the kindred as a whole in a place where other people can see you. In this room, where Maggie's in charge, where it's soundproofed and nobody can hear us, you can say whatever the fuck you want to. Fuck the Justicars. It's bullshit that they're here. Nobody wants them. I don't want them here. I don't want them in our city, and I don't want to have to deal with it. I get it. I really, really do. But once we leave this room, you've got to pretend like everything's fine. We're playing chess. And if you don't want to be a pawn that gets sacrificed at the most convenient opportunity, you need to be useful and you need to be able to play the game. And I can't do that for you. I've been trying. I've been standing between you and danger, and I've been giving you every opportunity that I possibly can in the very few days that we have had to spend together without some other catastrophe going on. But if you can't think ahead of what you're doing, and if you can't respond to a situation with some kind of poise and grace and stoic silence, if nothing else, then I can't help you. You just gotta fake it. I'm faking it. I don't know what the fuck's going on either. I couldn't tell Maggie the things that she needed to know in that room because I would have been dead. If I say the wrong things to the wrong people right now, everything falls apart. I'm trying to keep you and everybody else alive long enough for Maggie to figure out what she's doing. Because you know what? They're all coming to me. And the fact that they're not coming to you is something I am working very hard to maintain. Because you're right. You're brand new. You don't know what's happening. And you've got no context for any of this. Despite my best efforts, despite our conversations, it's still hard. I get it. But all I can do is stand between you and that, and you're still making that difficult. Yeah, sure, it's Maggie's bar, and Val is vaguely aware of what goes on in the night. But she doesn't necessarily know what a Justicar is either. And revealing that information to her is not your place. Yeah, sure, Will also has some idea of what's going on. He works for Maggie. He's got, and I think he's a ghoul now anyway. He wasn't when I met him. But he also probably doesn't know what a Justicar is. He doesn't know what's going on in the city either. And I'm not going to be the one that tells him what's going on without talking to Maggie first. Because I don't know the game either. I don't know how to be more than a pawn on this chessboard. And so I asked Maggie. And that's all you can do. Is you can hold your fucking thoughts in your brain until you are in a space where it is safe to express them. You can't just keep talking about this anywhere. You're going to get yourself and me killed. Not that I'm not doing a great job of getting my own self killed at the moment anyway.
guess even the kindred fear for their own mortality or lack thereof, I suppose.
I don't even care if it's my mortality. I just want you to be able to live long enough to figure out if you want to be here.
Let's circle back to the fact I didn't exactly ask to be in any of this, but since I'm in it, I may as well be in it for the long haul. As badly as there are days where I truly wish that instead of turning into this, instead of waking up like this, that I was another of the failed experiments that just didn't turn. Hell, there are countless nights I wake up wishing that this was all a nightmare. But here we are. And right now, we're trying our damnedest to be pawns in a chess game of chaos and confusion. This is like 4D chess level bullshit. And quite frankly, I'd rather not be a pawn in someone else's game. If I'm going to be a pawn in anyone's game, it's going to be the prince's game at this point. Because at least that kind of makes sense at this stage. Because the prince is actually trying to advocate for all of us. I don't know what these Justicars want. I don't know what I highly doubt they're advocating for us, though. That much I can be clear on. Since you've been visited by whoever in your gallery, I only can assume that they're going after the rest of the coterie, and I can only assume that I'd be lucky if I didn't get a knock on my door asking to talk, where it's like the CIA and you go missing forever. This is terrifying shit. This is infuriating shit. And quite frankly, I'm sorry. I will do better. But right now, I don't know how to do better other than playing by someone else's rules in some sick game, and that bothers.
It's what we're all doing. That's what we're all doing. We are towing the line of whoever's rules we have to stay alive. That's what we do. Is that every kindred's experience? I don't know. I'm new to this. This is the only kindred city I've been in, and we have been in constant fight and struggle and uprising and battle after battle after battle. I don't know what to tell you. That's part of why the Justicars are here. Because they think this is Maggie's fault. And if we don't play by the rules of somebody else's sick, fucked up game, we're not going to be able to change that perception. We're not going to be able to protect the city. And we aren't going to have Maggie's game board to play on anymore. Speaking of which, if you'll allow me a moment, you should be okay. I don't think the Justicars will visit you because you're my childer. And they've already visited me. And it's my job to keep track of you. In fact, my understanding, broken and fucked up as it is that, frankly, you don't matter to them as much as you matter to what I look like to them. That's why I asked if you were trying to get me killed. That's why I asked if you wanted me to die. Because this afternoon, or this evening, when I walked out to that bar and you started talking about Justicars at a fucking human bar where anybody could have heard you, all I heard was, hey, look, this lady doesn't know what she's doing. Why don't you come get rid of her? That'll make things easier, won't it? That's what I'm afraid of. You're relatively safe. You're just somebody else's childer. And a brand fucking new one at that. I highly doubt they expect much of anything from you. Which is not me trying to be rude. I know that you're a person that you didn't ask to be here, that you're just doing your best. I get it. I really, truly do. But that's not going to save my life if you make a mistake. And like I said, I don't know the rules either. I can only play by the traditions that are the absolute core of what it is to be a kindred. And that's what I'm asking you to do too.
Okay. I hate that the rules are constantly shifting based on who we're interacting with. But if that's what it takes to keep us all alive, I'll do it. You're right. I stepped way out of line. I have no concept of whose rules we're playing by at the moment, if I'm being completely honest. But that's, again, the ever-shifting nature of the beast here. 1 minute, we're playing by the traditions. 1 minute, or rather the next, we're playing suddenly answer 50 questions from the senior most investigators in this world of darkness we unlive in, as it were. And that makes it hard to track. I feel like I need a deck of cards, like index cards or something, just to see whose rules I need to play by every day. Write it on a calendar, something. I'm not trying to get you killed, Mercy. I'm really not. If I wanted you dead, you'd know, because I'd very blatantly tell you to your face I want you dead. But that is not my goal. You have shown me and given me a lot, and I could never repay you for all of it. And if I sound ungrateful, I'm sorry. I'm not ungrateful. I'm scared. I'm hurt. I am confused, unsure, and so many other things right now. And it is hell on earth trying to figure this out. But let me be clear, I do not want you dead. You have given me no reason to desire such. Claymore is someone I wish I could have put the final death on. But considering all that chaos and what she did to me, the point is, I will do better.
Thank you. So, how I don't even know how to try and help you understand more. Should we go back over the traditions? Do you need a refresher on what those are? I feel like they're fairly self-explanatory. It's all the same. It's all the same game. Yeah, sure. We don't know what moves other people are playing, and frankly, there's 9/10 of the game board that we can't see, but the base is the same. Don't break the masquerade. Understand the domain, the progeny, the accounting, hospitality, and destruction. These are the rules. They don't change. It's the same rules all the time. It's just the way that different people twist the way the game board looks to make those rules benefit them. I don't know how to think for you. And as far as I'm concerned, within these traditions, within the rules of what it means to be a kindred, you just have to think about what you're doing. And stop breaking Maggie's furniture, because I'm going to have to replace it. She's going to be pissed about this table.
Yeah, it is a pretty nice table.
It was.
It was, yeah.
So, to interject here, and I don't want to kill any momentum, it sounds like you two have kind of synced up and are on the same page as far as where your relationship moving forward needs to go. Is that a fair assumption?
I don't know. Both myself and Mercy are really not sure Braggy's getting it.
Yeah, Braggy's still a little unsure too. He's getting the concepts of the base rules and all, and to stop breaking Maggie's furniture because it is expensive and nice, and the table is like 10 times as expensive as one chair, I'm sure. Um, yeah, I have an inkling. Hold on, it's coming to me. Right. Braggy will say, I understand that there are rules, and there's, like I said, it's a 4D chessboard at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And we're playing by so many other people's games at one time, but at the end of the day, this has been enlightening. This dialogue, as heated as it got, and I will do better and be better about thinking for myself and not relying on someone else to help me all the time. Because while you are my sire, you're not always going to be there when I'm in danger, right? We can't always expect to be side by side, to be right there with each other all the time, and I need to understand that I do need to think for myself more, and I do need to come to terms with where I'm at, who I am now, as opposed to who I was 2 months ago, because those are two completely different people.
Both of you roll a d10.
Oh boy.
Feel fine about that. Beautiful rolls, guys. Beautiful rolls.
Oh boy.
Okay.
I have no idea what you mean. It's fine. It's probably fine. Don't make that fucking face, Matt.
I have safety concerns.
I'm just doing stuff. Don't worry about it.
I'm scared now.
Don't be scared. There's no reason to be scared. You guys seem to. Well, I think it's a fair assumption to say that you're both out of your depth when it comes to not just the world of darkness in general, of which Mercy is more acclimatized to, but the rules, the new players, it seems, have really thrown off your vibes, we'll say. And during your heated discussions, you have banged around in this room, you have broken some things, and while it is soundproofed and it is secured, there are no such concepts as perfect soundproofing, there, especially when there are kindred ears that abound. And since it seems that you could use potentially an outside source of information, there is a couple of knocks on the exterior door of the room. Now, you can ignore them. That is entirely your benefit to do so, or your decision to do so, and it could be to your benefit to do so. though it may not. You can feel pretty comfortably that if it were Maggie, there would not have been a knock.
Oh, that's a really interesting and awful perspective. Thank you.
Listen, one of her chairs and her table is now broken. I can understand why she wouldn't knock.
But you don't have a stake in your hand anymore, right?
No, it's in the table.
I believe it's
lodged
sticking
firmly
in the table. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. That'll be fun to explain. Actually, you can explain that to Maggie.
Yeah, I'll explain that one. That's fair.
Crap. Mercy knows better. She'll look at Braggy, saying, "If you're done breaking furniture and waving around pointy objects, I'll see who's at the door."
Didn't you have a stake in your hand at one point too, or did you drop that?
It's gone. As far as you're concerned, she did. Yes, have a stake at one point.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've passed the point of unbottling and processing, where I'm in the mood to break furniture.
Great. Next time you want to break furniture, why don't we go literally anywhere less expensive than this? And with that, she'll go open the door.
Okay.
But in such a way as she is perhaps not letting it open far enough to see the destroyed table.
As you do so, you creak open the doors slightly, just to peek out who may be attempting to intervene in your conversation. A familiar face, but someone that you haven't talked to a whole lot, as Fee, the seneschal, and Maggie's something, you don't know, is sitting outside the door looking through a small notebook, and she notices when the door opens up. And she looks up at you and says, "I couldn't help as I was passing by, but hear some commotion and thought I'd check on the two of you. If you would like. Maggie's busy, and I don't think she'd want to be bothered with it, and I don't think you'd want her involved, so I didn't get her involved."
You might as well come in then. She'll open the door and reveal the broken chair and destroyed table.
Ah, that explains the noise.
Yeah, that was me. It got really heated in discussion, and
Without kind of looking at you, Braggy, she kind of stays looking at the table and kind of just assessing the chair, the table, and she goes, "That's your first mistake, usually, is you should never claim responsibility right away. Let them wonder a little bit. It helps. Your
well,
problem is, aside from your youth, you still think about things in mortal terms far too often. This isn't a world where your merit, your honesty gets rewarded a whole lot. It's rare if it does." Now, I don't know what the conversation was about. I frankly, I don't know that I need to know. I know that tensions in the city are high right now, especially with the members of your group. And while I am not the prince, I do want the same things that she does. And if I can help out in any way, whether it's through clarification, ordering a new table, whatever that may need to happen, I'm here. I can do that. And
For confirmation, is the store closed behind her at this point, or
yeah,
not yet?
oh yeah, no, when she came in, she would have probably you closed it, she closed it, doesn't matter.
Cool. Sure.
And she takes a seat at the end of the table and just kind of looks at between you both, expecting to have to answer a few questions and see your concerns.
Mercy will take a seat. Uh, she doesn't look less angry necessarily. I mean, vaguely less angry than she was before, but not less. I spent a lot of time describing her as very predatory in the scene, in that she puts on a lot of bubbly effervescence to be like the mortal she used to be. That's not back. She's still not the giggly, kind-hearted person that you are accustomed to seeing. And in fact, I don't know that this is a side of Mercy that Fee will have seen yet, necessarily. Which is not to say that she's trying to be threatening or anything, but she's just not. She's just a pissed off Bruja in this moment, and she kind of looks like it. So she'll take her seat and gesture at Braggy and say, almost certainly Fee will have better answers than I have for you. About all of it. Take your pick.
Braggy will look to Mercy and Fee for a moment before taking a seat as well. Braggy then will say, how much do you know, Fee, about the hierarchy and where the Justicars actually fall in terms of why they would be here? What purpose could they possibly gain from visiting Chicago at this stage? And
Well, it's a valid question, Braggy. Based on everything that we know about how the Ivory Tower works, the inner circle sits at the top. They're the one that delegate the rules, the traditions, all that stuff. The Justicars would fall directly below them. They are the enforcers of the law. They are the generals of the kings, if you want to look at it that way. If the inner circle wants something done, someone taken care of, issues dealt with, the Justicars are who they would send, if they care enough about the issue. Because we didn't know until recently that there were Justicars within the city, I can only speculate at this moment in time, but I would say forgive me, I'm trying to think of the right things to say that Maggie wouldn't be mad about, as I'm sure you're aware. The way that Maggie carried herself, the way that she got into contact with the inner circle, how it was done, not necessarily traditional. Princes do, on occasion, have the ability to contact the inner circle, but it's not a given. And Maggie's newer and younger and things that don't necessarily come with that sort of privilege. And Maggie, and I've known Maggie for many years, she found a way and forced it, essentially. And so, if I had to guess why the Justicars are here, they're probably assessing threats. The fact that no one's turned up dead yet is great news, honestly. It doesn't mean that we should be careless, obviously, but they haven't made decisions yet. They don't have orders to execute, or they would have done so or attempted to do so. So I
I
hope.
can actually shed additional light on this. Forgive me, Fee, but I'm going to speak directly to Braggy here. And if you happen to hear what I'm saying, that would be just fine. um, so there's a woman in town, a Justicar. Her name is Lucinda. She is the Red Alistar. Whatever that means. I'm sure, or I hope that Fee can tell us more about that in a moment. She's in town officially. She told me specifically, in fact, that I am under investigation. And that they are additionally looking into Maggie and why Maggie might have reached out to a member of the inner circle. They are concerned that there is some sort of nefarious reasoning that she might be trying to trap the circle member or kill them or otherwise do something bad. That the reason is some sort of murderous plot, and that's why Maggie has reached out to the inner circle. That's why the Red Alistor is here, and that's why she was in my gallery, telling me that I was under formal investigation. Last night, actually.
Gonna take a.
Sorry, but there's some context that I don't know that Maggie shared. That I feel like I can. Maybe I'm just saying my notes out loud. Let's just say that. You guys happen to be in the room when I'm looking through them. Sometimes I talk when I think. Do you know why Maggie thinks that she needed to contact the inner circle? Did she say that?
Um, a poem on a box.
A poem on a box. Sort of, kind of. She believes, based on a few different things, that it's her place on that table. Now, again, it's Maggie. You have known her for enough time to understand how Maggie thinks. If she gets it in her mind that she wants something, it's hard to convince her otherwise. This is different. This isn't a desire per se. She feels like this is what she's meant to do, her purpose. It's been a driving force for decades. She has felt for a time that the place at that table has been occupied by somebody that didn't earn it and wasn't destined for it. And until recently, she didn't really have a lot of proof to go on. But your sister, when she was over doing what she was doing, working for Maggie, found that box and the contents of that box. And I don't know that I've ever seen Magdalena get more confirmation that she's been right on anything else. I've seen it. I believe that it's true. I had my doubts, but I have a different perspective than she does as well, based on my blood, and I can see where it could be legitimate. Her claims. I don't know if the Justicar will find the same evidence or care. I've never met one before.
A new situation all around.
Braggy is noticeably puzzled looking at this reveal here and says, so some magical prophecy box with magical prophecy something or other inside of it has effectively said, hey, Magdalena Masters, you called it, take your place, make the move. Is that the short version
I
of what I'm
mean,
gathering?
that's a very
Crude
rudimentary
summary.
version, very crude. I would say crude is a good word for it. Let me let me try and explain it in a different way. There are millennia of our kind. They go back a long way, much longer than Maggie, much longer than Maggie. The blood, the closer you get to the first of us, was stronger. That's why the elders of the clan generally retain power for as long as they do, because they are just that strong. There are stories of the lower generations that did feats of discipline that we can't attain these days, these nights. My ability that I utilized at Maggie's request to watch you both, as well as a couple other members, is a watered down version based on where I am in the blood. There are stories of prophecies that were seen millennia ago that have foretold accurately the things that have come in recent nights. And it is believed that all of the games being played now, all of the games the Camarilla plays, all of the games the Anarchs play, the Sabbat, every kindred, have already been witnessed by the oldest of us with the ability to do so. Now, I don't necessarily know that fate is set. I don't know how that plays a part of it. But I do know that there are prophecies that have been written down. There are prophecies that have been scattered. There are prophecies that have been lost. But there's no reason to assume that what Maggie has been believing and may have found proof of is any less concrete than any of those. And while a lot of it can be kind of frowned on, I mean, if you want to get down to it, if we are all pawns in a game, if you know the end game, you might want to change it. You might try and rig the pieces. If somebody finds proof that you rigged it, it can be a problem for a lot of people. Now, I don't know that that's the case. I'm not making any accusations. What I do know is that Maggie is set on her next steps And I intend to support her completely because I owe it to her. I don't know the full extent of the relationship that you have with her, Mercy. I know that she helped you in your transition to this world as she did me, but that's besides the point at this point.
So, oh, go ahead. So, so I'm not saying that fate isn't the be-all, end-all here, and that people will try to change their fate, but in the end, isn't that kind of a set-in-stone thing? And if you try to change your fate, you're only going to push it yourself more towards that end?
It's
I'm
hard to
not
speak the nature of fate.
I'm not an arbiter on it. I don't I mean, I've studied it. I've studied some of the more well-known prophecies of things. The way I view it is I think that you can push fate. You can bend it. And maybe you bend it enough to where it's okay. Maybe it snaps back like a piece of rubber. I don't know. Maybe what Maggie is doing right now, attempting to attain space that she feels is hers, maybe that's the rubber band snapping back. It's been said that the Camarilla has been in decline. Maybe there's a reason it has been. And as much as I support Magdalena and what she's doing, I also am pragmatic in my view that just because you feel something, you feel like it's your purpose, doesn't mean that it's going to work out. But that's the differences in our blood. I don't know if you know Mini Ventru. I know that there aren't really too many left in the city since Maggie came to power. I don't know if that was by design. Maggie has not touched on a lot of pre-praxis. What I do know is that she can be a force. And even when she was a human, I think she was probably still just as stubborn. And the blood of the Ventru clan has only, only made that worse. Whether or not that's a boon or a detriment, I can't say. But she's still here. She survived London. She's made quite the name for herself in the New World. And as of right now, I haven't seen a lot of evidence to say that what she's been doing is wrong.
So, as far as the fate thing goes, because this is Braggy getting genuinely like, was everything that happened to me kind of preordained thing? But he's putting the comedic twist for his understanding here. He goes, so I was supposed to have a bomb shoved into my body because fate ordained it so? Or was that just a weird twist in the grand scheme of this adventure?
For the first time, you probably have seen and interacted with Fee this much. You see her crack a smile at that, and she said, "I don't know that a bomb shoved in your body is preordained, but I've heard about and seen other Samishi projects, and I think you got off pretty easy.
I couldn't even make
Yeah.
coffee with you when you were with.
Listen, the whole process to get all of that stuff out was,
Unique.
yeah, that's one word for it. It was painful, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this fate thing is non-specific on the details, just that things will happen, right? That's accurate.
I don't know that I put too much stock in the fate thing. I know it's, I don't know. I really don't. I, I'll put it this way. The reason I knocked on the door tonight wasn't because I was walking by and overheard some things. I kind of knew you'd be here. I kind of knew it was going to happen. I thought maybe it would be needed. It gets fuzzy too far out. What they could do before, I don't know. I don't know if it's all preordained. I know that some details remain, regardless of action, but I don't know that they're all fixed. I've never pushed that far. I don't know anybody recently that has, and I don't know anybody old enough that I could ask, or that they would tell me. For all I know, one of the ancient Methuselahs could come walking in the door right now because they knew that they would need to answer a question. And she'll pause and look at the door.
I hate that.
Oh boy. Methuselah. Braggy's like verbally saying that. Isn't that like a super like ancient kindred that's like
They're bad.
way, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. The term sound, I've heard it before in recent
We were
conversations.
we were concerned about that with the six and the inversion
Ah,
of that.
that's
I
right.
understand it would be blurry. You were barely unalive at that point.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was pre or post bomb disposal that we discussed it.
Oh yeah, that was on this table, I think.
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
ruined. And she like flares at Braggy.
Fee
Listen,
Fee will get up and she will walk over to a spot next to the shelves, kind of, and she will look down on the floor and she will kind of bend down and put her finger in a spot that's a little darker, and she'll go, "There's a lot of things that have happened in this room, in this building, in this place. They leave marks." And then she gestures at the stake in the table. She goes, "In a month, that won't even be remembered."
well,
But I've answered your questions, Braggy, and I'm perfectly willing to answer more, but as much as you're new and young, and she'll look at you, Mercy, you're not much older, comparatively. And I know Maggie can be an okay teacher, but she can also be very wordy. So I'm here for you too, at least right now.
um, I mean, obviously, there's so much going on. So, Justicar, 1 in the city, obviously notable. 2 in the city, I'm gathering is almost unheard of. And I know that you said you haven't necessarily met the Justicars before.
No, and generally they don't gather. They don't work together a whole lot. Usually they're only together, maybe in theory. Again, the inner circle maintains a level of secrecy that is, quite frankly, terrifying. But when they are appointed, it's possible that multiple of them get appointed in the same convention, meeting, gathering. For them to both be here in one city working towards a similar goal, it's not concerning. But again, looking at the context clues, no one is dead. No one has been attempted to be killed that we're aware of. And they have not contacted the prince immediately.
To that point, something that feels important to tell you, Braggy and Shoal, again, with that sort of very obvious laser focus, turn her attention away from Fee as she says this. The Red Alistar asked me not to tell Maggie that she was in town, nor what her business here was, but did tell me that I was welcome to speak to my coterie about such things.
At that,
Huh.
Fee will like arch an eyebrow and say, "That is a curious bit of information." She did specifically say those words, not to tell Maggie, but that you could discuss it with the coterie.
Mercy pauses here for a moment, as though considering the bounds of what she has created as her own interpretation of these rules. And we'll think for a moment about the specifics of what was said to her and what she can recall. And say, not to tell the prince. Not to tell the prince, but that I was welcome to inform my coterie and discuss these things within my coterie. In fact, so much so that she told me I should tell Roland and Egret that she would like to speak with them also. She asked if I knew where to find them, and when I told her I did not have specifics on that, she said not to worry and that she would find them on her own. But not to tell the prince about our discussion.
That stands out to me as interesting for a couple of reasons.
It seems vaguely non-traditional.
Non-traditional, but also, if she didn't want Maggie to know, she would have said, "You can speak with the coterie, but tell them not to say." If she didn't include that, then she fully intended the prince to find out that she was in town. Maybe she's doing it in a way. Hmm.
To
And
your point,
Fee will kind of get lost in thought for a moment while you can talk, but she's kind of
sure.
like,
And so I guess Fee, or not Fee, God dang it.
sorry, she was named before your character Intergalactic came. I can't help it.
It's totally fine. It only gets me sometimes at this point because we're so far out from Galactic. Mercy will. I'm not going to try and retcon. So to your point, Fee, and then she stops and she says, actually, Braggy, I was thinking. I had a thought. Um, the the other night, I was taking a walk around Chicago, and I stumbled across an unfamiliar kindred. Not that that's uncommon here in the
Uh-huh.
city, but a newcomer, just hanging about in town, and she had some interesting things to say about the world, Chicago, and the way that the world works. And she said that her visit here was business. That, and I'm summarizing, of course, assuming some meaning to what we discussed, but that she had business in town and was looking for ways to, I almost want to say, mitigate the damage of of what's to come in these nights. About that the next time that we met, it perhaps would be a very formal business meeting. That her purposes within the city might seem unaligned with my own, but that she was regretful of that perception. And she told me I could call her Elle. I have good reason between what I saw of her that evening and what I have seen now, and given the name I was allowed to call her by, that perhaps this was the same woman who visited my gallery, Lucinda. And I have a very strong suspicion that while her primary objectives here seem to be not necessarily entirely her own choice, that she has plans and feelings of her own on the situation of the city that she is working to create. Which lends well to this idea that asking me not to tell the prince, but allowing me to speak to the coterie with no additional parameters indicates.
Braggy looks to Mercy for a moment, clearly contemplating what has just been explained, and without skipping a beat, says, normally I'd say this seems like a test of some kind of your trustworthiness, your willingness to follow instructions, but there's a lot more than just a simple test at play here. And considering that, well, actually, do we know if the because there's two separate Justicars in town. Are they aware of each other's presence?
I can answer that question for you too. At least the Ventruse Justicar is well aware of the presence of the Toreador Justicar in the city.
Oh. Seems like the whole compartmentalization thing has either played out in such a way that there is
As a quick addendum,
coincidence.
you got that backwards. Diana,
Oh,
the one that you met with.
Toreador is aware of Ventrue, but not the other way around. Wait, no,
No,
I thought
you
they were
haven't
both.
met with the Ventrue
Oh,
Justicar, but we did pass by the same space as the Toreador Justicar.
okay.
Is that, sorry, was that the correction that you were making there, Matt?
So Lucinde is not yet aware that there's another Justicar in town.
I thought that the Mercy did explain that actually, because we had met the Toreador Justicar. Then Mercy had the conversation with the Ventrue Justicar and explicitly made a point to say, yeah, there's another Justicar in town too, towards the end of that conversation, as I recall.
Did you?
Yeah. specifically, very specifically.
Let me
In
look at my
fact,
notes.
that's why Roland and Ygritte are pissed off, out of character, with Mercy. That's why the whole throwing them under the bus thing. Because Mercy wouldn't have known that necessarily at that point in time if they hadn't just had the meeting with us.
No, actually, I think that.
And then later at the meeting that happened in the last episode, without Braggy and Mercy, they told Diana because Mercy
Yeah.
had sent the text message saying there was another visitor, and then it was extrapolated by by Tony, that there's also the Red Alistair.
Yes. No, I think you are right.
Pulled one over on the DM. Got him. Sorry, I don't mean it.
Yeah, no. Sorry, my 45 pages of notes over here are hard to.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not like you're doing anything or
I
tracking
I
down people
have
while
I
we
have
talk
to
them.
update constantly who knows what, and
It's a lot.
it's also fun playing Fee, a character who knows this amount of knowledge, and not explain everything to you guys via that.
So
Hey, no judgment at all. I totally understand.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm fairly certain that she was pretty upset to hear that there was the other Justicar in town, and then she said something about like that's very interesting, and then that's why we got on the subject of Roland and Ygritte so quickly, because that was how I found out about the other Justicar, and so how she found out.
Gotcha. No, I am recalling this now.
So if the Justicars weren't aware of each other before, normally, based on all of the inner machinations I'm understanding this inner circle to have, the compartmentalization and secrecy could lead to that as a coincidence, but this doesn't feel like that. This feels like it was intentional and someone's got some foul play going on, and the two Justicars are here on different business entirely for each, and that's gonna be a problem. Just I've seen the upper management thing when I was immortal. Upper management don't like you. Retaliation happens, and it's not supposed to, but it does every now and again. This feels like a similar concept to some degree. Someone in the inner circle is not happy and trying to take care of business and clean house.
Well, to be very
Generally,
clear, oh, she would
uh, I
she would let
was
Fee speak.
Fee would let Fee speak.
That's right.
Uh, Generally, if the inner circle has issues, they don't. They really only meet like once uh, in a while. We think. Um, but the point is that they decided. I don't believe that they interact with each other's enforcers, so to speak. They, the Justicars of each clan would be only beholden to the head of their person at the table. So it's not like one person on the inner circle could send multiple Justicars. That would most likely not happen.
To be
Yeah.
very specific, Braggy, about this, the Red Outstar, Lucind, the Ventru Justicar, has been sent to the city in order to figure out why Maggie is looking to speak to a member of the inner circle. That is her purpose here. And to that end, I am under official investigation, and I assume that is because I am so close to the prince. Out of character, I'm trying to remember if Roland and Ygritte told us why Diana is, or not Diana, yeah, Diana's in town. Why the other Justicar is in town. And I think that they did. They're in the chat, so they could weigh in on whether or not they shared that information. Because I think that was part of what we discussed in Tony's meeting room. That she had been summoned by Portia. You did not. Okay, then never mind. I don't know that. So she'll end with that specific of Mercy was told she was under official investigation while they tried to figure out why Maggie called an inner circle member.
Oh, there is actually one other thing that I wanted to tell you that not that I wanted to tell you, that I just find it very interesting that this letter that you received, Braggy, is identical to one that the sheriff of the city received too.
The sheriff did receive a letter.
That
Sheriff?
is what I believe has happened. Yes.
Victoria, our sister Maggie's other adopted child.
Right.
The interesting thing about that one, though, was there was a follow-up meeting with the sheriff, and well, it didn't really go anywhere, but the at least what she told us, it didn't really pan out.
That's very interesting. I wonder, do you know much about her schedule lately?
She's away. I know that there's some things going on, which actually there may be something that Maggie calls you all to do in the next few nights. I'm not entirely sure what the plans are. But
sure.
Sorry, I'm thinking about a lot right now and trying to keep things together.
Of course, I understand. Between everything going on and keeping the secrets that you must, I'm sure it's a difficult space to have this conversation, and I appreciate that you've come to talk to us.
I remember what it can be like to be uninformed and kind of having to find your own way. And Maggie's too busy to help, so.
I do have another question for you, if you have time.
Yeah.
Not that I intend for anything to come of this, nor is it an outcome I hope to see. But should it come down to trouble, do you think that Maggie has any chance of holding her own against either one of these Justicars, let alone two of them, should they decide to work together on this? I don't want to put you in a position of discomfort. I simply wonder just what scale of power we're looking at, whereas Maggie tends to top the charts that I am familiar with.
I think that it's probably a poor habit to try and scale it. They often operate in different terms. I know that I'm fairly certain that the Red Alistair is of the same clan as Magdalena, and so they would be similar in ability, but she's likely older. She's likely stronger, but it's hard to tell. I haven't been around Maggie for at least half a century, so I don't know what new tricks Maggie's picked up. I know that she is she's a lot different actually than what I remember, but I mean, a lot of it is the same, but she's picked up some new things along the way.
Mm.
I don't know, but I will say it this way. Even if Maggie doesn't have the ability to hold her own in a one-on-one or two-on-one confrontation with enemies of that scale, she probably has other plans to make sure the scales tip in her favor. She's not one to leave contingencies. She's usually a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G kind of woman.
I gathered that about her,
So,
but yes, you're quite right. Thank you. No, it's a good point to consider that it's not all about just their physical and kindred ability as much as it is their ability to plot and plan as well. So,
honestly, to be 100% real in this scenario, I think for Maggie, with what she's attempting to do, if it came to the point where the Justicars felt the need to do that to her, she would look at that as having failed because I don't know how she would view it, but attaining a seat on the table where you're the boss of the people that tried to kill you would probably be seen as a failure to her, from what I know of her.
sure.
So I would look for her to take other avenues, if at all possible. If it gets to that point, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that this city could withstand that.
If perhaps we hadn't faced one thing after another, I would so love to have seen what kind of city Maggie would form. I mean, already what she's done is impressive, but it is what it is, I suppose.
I can tell you from experience, she's always been inclusive, and that's always been something that's pissed off the people of her clan. Her her blood, by all accounts, should make her not the way that she is. And yet, I don't know that she has ever not seen a potential ally in everyone at some point.
Mhm.
That's why I'm here. So,
I do appreciate your assistance this evening. Um, it's it's been complicated for sure, and uh,
that's an
I've
understatement.
I've felt like the blind leading the blind, trying to assist Braggy with these things, and
But for whatever little bit it's worth. I know that, well, I guess I don't know, but I feel and I've experienced that Maggie, however she can care, she does. Even though she's not there, she definitely wants to be there for you in some way. Even you, Braggy, I know that it's still relatively new, being part of it, being scooped up, but she tends to take in stragglers and strays. It's something she's always done. And in my experience, if she does, it's not an empty gesture. And she's not, at this point, you see Fee kind of get like, not emotional, but like, just kind of like distant a little bit.
Okay.
And she'll go, from what I know, again, of before, I think that she, even now, still remembers what it's like to be where you're at. And it sucks, hands down. Those first 10 years, sorry to break it to you, but they're not easy a lot of the time. And I wasn't even in this, but where I was wasn't great, but there's a lot going on here. A lot of change rapidly. And you're trying to learn the rules of the game before you get thrown into it. And we're towards the end, so I can imagine where you're at.
You know, I hadn't even considered that Maggie's position and her busyness, her distance of late was going to make this such a different experience for you, Braggy. Because for me, I have no doubt where Maggie lies as far as, I don't want to say her loyalty to me, but certainly her care for me and her stance on and what she wants for me. And I'm sure that it's the same for you because she would not have given you her name, made you a master's if she didn't extend that same welcome. But I know, for instance, that if I ask Maggie to meet with me, she will make time. And if I need Maggie's help on something, she will help. And I don't know that you have that the same way. Um, but she's right. You you've been collected. You are part of Maggie's family, adopted or otherwise, and that comes with the spotlight in this situation, and it comes with a fucking gallows over our heads, it seems, but also a great deal of protection and affection and aid should you need it. And I've tried to offer you the same things, the same welcome that I was given into this unlife, but I hadn't considered that perhaps you weren't receiving that same welcome that I had received. I mean, I know the coterie has been an issue as well. They have not welcomed you in as warmly as I was. Well, okay, Roland's always been an asshole. He was an asshole when I was new too, but otherwise quite welcomed in um, to things. And even in his asshole moments, Roland has never been unkind to me. And so, but I do think your experience has perhaps been a bit different than that. And I guess I can only try to do even better from here.
Braggy looks at Mercy for a moment and then sort of smiles and says, It's It's my job to do better as well. And you're right. It has not been the same kind of warm, I suppose, warm welcome you may have received. It has been different for me. And while you personally have done your best to provide the same kind of welcome into this new on life, it's also been, I mean, chaos left and right. I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen another grenade shoved into someone else's chest cavity or something. From what I
I'm just
hear,
saying,
this
the first time that Maggie had a grenade in her hand, she shoved it into a werewolf. So
exactly my point. You know, we haven't seen someone else's chest cavity filled with a grenade that then turned them into, well, a mess. But there's still time for that. But I suppose at this point, the only thing we can do is do better. And interestingly enough, there's a lot of plans and plots and ideas at play here that we're going to have to navigate as a part of this. It's quickly becoming what, 8-dimensional chess now? I don't know. Next will be 16 dimensions, and I just think we need to get it to 1 dimension if we can. Maybe 2 at most.
Fee pipes up at this moment and goes, "See, the problem is you're playing chess. They haven't been playing chess for generations. They've
Have they
long
moved on to
surpassed it."
checkers?
And I can see on both of your faces that you have this. Well, I remember the look, the newness, the uncertainty, the not knowing your place. It's easier for some than others. The blood makes it easy in some cases, easier. The situation, the decade, the century in which you come about, all of it has factors to play. I can tell you that having been brought into the night in the way that you had under the person that picked you, it could be far worse options. And Fee will kind of stand up at this point, kind of move to the door, and she goes, again, I'm usually available if you have questions. I may not get back immediately. I have some things I need to get to this evening. But before I leave this room, and hopefully she looks a little, maybe nervous even. She says, before I leave this room, I don't necessarily want this to leave this room, but I think that it bears being said. Whatever Maggie does, whatever Maggie says, whatever these plans are that she's got in motion, however this all plays out, I fully believe that it's the right direction for kindred, for all of us. And I'd bet my last name on it. You're not the only ones in this building that share the master moniker. And she'll open the door and she'll leave.
very interesting.
That was enlightening.
I agree. I hope he is feeling rather enlightened about things as well.
Yeah.
But I think I also was able to address any of the other things I would have spoken to you about this evening prior to, and she'll gesture at the table and the chair. The Alistar in my gallery, the edict not to speak to Maggie of such things, but the welcome to speak to the coterie. And I think that was important, and I think it was good that he was here for such conversations. But I don't know that I have any additional things to add on what's going on in the city at this moment. I wanted to try and get you updated and have you feel slightly less like you know nothing. But I feel like, I don't know if this conversation went for you the way it did for me. Like, I know even less now than I did before, but I almost always feel like that after speaking to kindred and learning of what goes bump in the night.
Sounds like you could use a letter from Sirius.
God, no. I mean, yeah, that's what I.
Actually, Bragi, on the note of letters from Sirius, Bragi will actually say, you know, as much as I feel like I don't necessarily know anything at the moment, that hasn't just brought me about 50 million more questions. I do feel like I know more than I did before. And this new on life is going to be a long learning journey, so I may as well make the most of that. You got any recommendations of someone I can ask about some ancient lore?
Well, I don't know about ancient lore, but I have been thinking that perhaps it would be good to get you, now that things have calmed down as much as they're going to, I suppose, since we're in the state of ramping back up into trouble, that you might speak with your primogen, Adrian Tars. He is presumably in the city somewhere. He runs a club locally, and he is the primogen of Clan Lasombra, your clan. And while Sirtas is likely and happily going to fill you in on anything you choose to ask him about as far as your clan and your histories and ability to exist in these nights, it might be best to speak with Tars instead. I'm sure I should call him Mr. Tars or Primogen Tars. I hope that you won't rat me out for being less than formal in this setting.
No, not at all. Primogen Tars it is. And then after that, likely Cerritos, because the more information I have, the better.
He, I'm sure, will be quite helpful in explaining the rules and why they are the way that they are. In fact, I'll let him know that he should seek you out.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a mixed blessing.
Oh, I vaguely think I remember you had communications with Cerritos at some point, right?
Quite frequently, in fact, yes.
Get the sense he's kind of the word more akin to like one of those like storyteller types that really likes to get into the nitty-gritty details.
From what I've gathered, and I could be wrong, many kindred don't talk about their age or the times when they were human, but I believe that he was a philosopher before the ancient Greek philosophers that we think of now. and I'm almost certain that he spent a good time among them. Whether as human or already a kindred, I couldn't tell you. I haven't asked, and I don't recommend you do. But I did get that impression that perhaps the idea of the original great philosopher may reflect greatly on their test, or maybe very reflective of him.
All right, fair enough. Oh, interestingly enough, I think I could use a little bit of philosopher's lesson on the new ways that have to be followed.
I can
ChatGPT is the
feel Matt
best right
planning.
now.
I can feel you. I can feel you typing away,
I'm
ChatGPT.
I'm not typing away. That's the best part.
That's fair.
It's so good. Hold on.
Why do we follow these rules the way that they are?
Uh,
Uh,
here. I don't know if I can post this all.
You've already typed up the
it's
prompt. Uh, it was prepared. Oh boy.
great. Oh, I love it. I'm so excited.
It's a fantastically well done explanation. You know, I hate AI in general with the way the world is going, but
Mhm.
using it for the summary of public domain kind of Vampire the Masquerade lore and rules, and getting it to spit it out in the from the perspective of like characters, it's, it's the only good use for it.
Fair. And it's great. It does work out so very well.
All
Well,
right.
at this time, I feel like we've accomplished what we wanted to tonight. I think that you have successfully role played your feelings, your emotions, gotten some answers, some little lore bits that were thrown in on top of it in a way um, that I
I
feel,
took notes.
and notes are good, and a message from Critias as I do love. But that all being said, this obviously counts as your downtime, and you can add that extra experience point to your character sheets. Um, and unless there's anything else that you want to touch on before we say goodnight,
Was there anything else for you, Braggy?
Not for this special episode, no.
But maybe
and
the next one.
yeah, no, and of course, if there's more little things you want to do technically in the timeline, this will count as your downtime for the purposes of the experience point. But for if there's anything else that you want to do, this conversation took place essentially the same night as the game ended last this week. So you still have a couple of nights to do things before we come back canonically in the time. So if there's things that you want to further, go out and talk about with your coterie members in that time, I know that they're all doing things in the time that is being done, and that's going to be fun for the next episode and see where we're at in that regard. Um, but unless there's anything else right now, you
I am
guys
content.
you feeling good? You happy with where
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
went? Didn't get as dark as
Yeah.
we were worried about it getting, and that was good. I like that.
Yep.
Um, and you didn't scream a whole lot, so that was fun too. I didn't have to
Apparently,
like,
Mercy's more about quiet anger.
hey, quiet anger is the best anger. Um, because there's a point I was like, I'm gonna have to maybe jack this audio down really low, real quick, just in case. So I was like ready, but didn't happen, so that's good. Um, actually, Roll, roll a d10 for me, Braggy.
Oh boy.
Good. Okay, never mind.
Good.
Uh,
Don't worry about it. Irrelevant.
uh,
It's an irrelevant number at
all
this
right.
point.
All right.
Forget I asked.
It'll be
Um,
fine.
yeah, should be fine. Totally fine. But with that, I think we can all say goodnight. I'm not going to worry about tossing out or rating out, I don't think,
Okay.
with the special episode. But
Fair enough.
thank everyone who has been in the chat and who has been commenting and being goofy. That's always fun. Thank you too for being here and having your conversation on stream. Um, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday when we have everybody else with us and get to see where these next couple of nights go. So
Yeah. Thanks
All
for
right.
having us, just in case we had to beat each other up physically and have to like make rolls and stuff, you
that
know?
that was the whole impetus behind this was are they going to murder each other? Am I going to have to stop it? How are we going to do that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it didn't even happen. Instead, you just got to play moderator for a verbal sparring match.
It was all right. It worked out. So,
I mean,
anyway, good night everybody and we'll see you next Monday.